අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight, on First at 9 this Tuesday, the 12th of September 2023. 13 lucky number. India urges Sri Lanka to implement the 13th Amendment at the UNHRC session in Geneva. Train pain. Passengers affected from Sri Lanka Railways Locomotive Operating Engineers Union. President takes steps to declare railway services an essential service. SOE restructure. New law to govern state-owned enterprises by year-end. Reveals head of SOE restructuring unit.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
Rhino Cement Roofing Sheets. හොඳම මෙලට කල් පවතින වහරයක්.
This is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and a warm welcome to today's edition of AdaDerana's English News, First at 9. I am Jonathan Benedict. Let's take a look at your news bulletin for the day. The Cabinet of Ministers today approved a proposal presented by the Minister of Power and Energy to accept a renewable power project proposal presented by the United Solar Energy SL private company in principle. A cabinet-appointed negotiation committee will now be established to evaluate the proposal and make recommendations. With that, here is a detailed look at more cabinet decisions announced today. Following the decision to invite expressions of interest from possible investors for renewable projects with a capacity of 50 megawatts or more in order to assist in the implementation of accelerated renewable energy development programs in the country, the Cabinet of Ministers has approved a solar power project by the United Solar Energy Sri Lanka Private Limited in principle and to appoint a cabinet-appointed negotiation committee to evaluate the proposals and make recommendations. The proposed solar power plant of 700 megawatts with a battery energy storage system at the Kilinochi Poonakari Lake aims to provide a power supply of 134 megawatts. The project is proposed to be implemented with a total investment of $1,727 million as a 100% foreign direct investment. The company will be granted 1,080 acres of the shallow area of the Poonakari Lake on a 35-year lease agreement to establish the 700 megawatt power plant. Cabinet further gave the nod to a proposal by the President to implement a proposed pilot project to improve the water quality of the Bera Lake using micro-nano bubble technology, carbon fiber biofilm technology and environmentally friendly enzymes for a period of 5 years. The project by Gropo Private Limited, a Singaporean company with Japanese ownership, was given policy approval by Cabinet in July of this year. The project will be subject to the necessary guidance of an expert committee consisting of experts on water quality from all universities in the country, representatives of all relevant testing institutions and other relevant institutions to decide on the further implementation of the project following results achieved. In another development, Cabinet has given policy approval to a drafted bill to introduce required legal provisions with the objective of empowering equality of gender socialization and women. The decision came as disputes arose within Sri Lanka regarding the equality of women and gender socialization. The Ministry of Women, Child Affairs and Social Empowerment is taking measures to minimize the gender imbalance of socialization. Parallel to this, Cabinet also gave policy approval to a draft bill prepared by the legal draftsman to establish an independent commission under the title of the National Women's Commission. Both decisions were given approval at the Cabinet meeting held on the 5th of September 2022 and drafted bills for both decisions have been given the policy approval of the Cabinet. Cabinet approval was also given to a proposal by the President to impose a zero customs tariff on the cost, insurance and freight value when importing electric vehicles. Subsequently, a zero customs tariff will be applicable on electric two-wheelers with a power grade up to 500 kilowatts and modern partially assembled semi-knockdown sets with an engine capacity of up to 3000 cc for assembling plug-in hybrid electric vehicles for the investors that engage them for electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles for a minimum investment of $50 million. The decision was taken with the aim to encourage the manufacturing of electric vehicles locally. Cabinet approved another proposal by the President to grant permission to import new rechargeable electric vehicles subject to an exemption of a custom tariff to an amount not exceeding the value of $30,000, including insurance and shipping charges for projects. The decision has been taken in order to attract investments under the programs retaining and extending investors for reinvestment of existing Board of Investment approved companies and the 100 Service Companies program that are the Board of Investment's information technology companies. Sri Lanka has decided to award long-term contracts to purchase 4 shipments of 92 UNL octane petrol to the Singapore-based Vitol Asia company. The awarded contract is to purchase 4 shipments of 92 UNL octane petrol over a period of 4 months from the 21st of September 2023 to the 21st of January 2024. The Vitol Asia company was selected out of 4 companies that responded to bids invited from suppliers registered under the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. Cabinet approval was also given at the meeting held yesterday to the proposal made by the Minister of Energy Kanchana Wijayasekara following the recommendations of the Cabinet-appointed Procurement Committee. The Cabinet of Ministers also granted approval for a proposal by the President to bring in amendments to change the date to implement the revised value-added tax cut till 2025 and the repeal of the simplified value-added tax gradually until a new system is in place following discussions held with the business community in the country. As such, the Cabinet of Ministers presented a proposal to submit the draft bill prepared to revised Value-Added Tax Act No. 14 of 2002, including the repeal of the simplified value-added tax scheme with effect from the 1st of January 2024 to Parliament. However, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has proposed that Cabinet revise the date of implementation of the relevant provisions to repeal the simplified value-added tax as 1st of April 2025. The President gave this direction when it was taken for discussion at the committee stage of the Parliament for discussing the amended value-added tax bill. The proposal came after discussions held between the President and relevant stakeholders, with special attention drawn to the drastic finance flow issues that may erupt, especially to exporters who have been registered under the system at present, if the simplified value-added tariff system is repealed without a strong value-added tax repayment system in place. A Gazette notification has been issued by the Railway Service as an essential service with immediate effect. At today's Cabinet decision announcement, the news conference, Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena said that the 84 train drivers who carried out the strike should take responsibility for the death of a young man at the Horape railway station. A train strike was launched by the Sri Lanka Railways Locomotive Operating Engineers Union midnight yesterday as a result of several unfulfilled key demands, including amendments to the recruitment and promotion processes. Consequently, at least 40 train services have been cancelled, including office train services and short-distance train services. As several train services were cancelled, the general public was severely affected, and trains which were in operation ended up being crammed with passengers. It was further reported that owing to the operational train strike, nearly 120 train services have been cancelled as of 6 p.m. this evening. Under the prevailing circumstances, one individual has reportedly died and another seriously injured after falling off a packed train. A 20-year-old travelling on the roof of a long-distance train travelling from Kandy to Colombo died tragically in the Horape area. Similarly, another person travelling on a crowded train from Colombo to Rambukkana has reportedly been injured and hospitalised after falling from the train compartment in Bulugahagoda. Meanwhile, a special Gazette notification has been issued under the directive of President Ranil Wickremesinghe, declaring railway services as an essential service. Subsequently, the public transport services for passengers or goods and the provision and maintenance of facilities for transport services by railway lines have been declared as essential services with immediate effect under the Essential Public Service Act. India calls on Sri Lanka to implement the 13th Amendment at the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva during the 54th regular session of the United Nations Human Rights Council, which commenced yesterday. Meanwhile, Russia highlighted that the Office of the Human Rights has failed to outline the positive developments Sri Lanka has made on areas including national reconciliation despite the crisis.
India has always been guided by 2 fundamental principles: support to the aspirations of Tamils for equality, justice, dignity and peace, and unity, territorial integrity and sovereignty of Sri Lanka. We hope that the government of Sri Lanka will fulfill the aspirations of Tamils for equality, justice and peace, and its commitment to implement the 13th Amendment and conduct provincial elections to ensure a life of respect and dignity for Tamils in Sri Lanka. Lanka. We have taken note of reaffirmation by the government of Sri Lanka on implementation of its commitments. However, progress on the same is inadequate, and we urge the government of Sri Lanka to work meaningfully towards early implementation of its commitments to ensure that the fundamental freedoms and human rights of all its citizens are fully protected.
Господин председатель, считаем контрпродуктивной практику искусственного разжигания.
We think it is counterproductive to continue the practice of artificially hyping up the human rights situation in Sri Lanka. Despite difficulties, authorities have shown significant progress in stabilizing the economic, social and financial situation in the country and have made significant progress towards national reconciliation. Civil activists are being investigated by law enforcement authorities and measures being taken to bring the culprits to account. The authorities of showing their willingness to build mutual respectful cooperation with international human rights mechanisms. Legislation is being brought in line with international standards when it comes to combating corruption and terrorism, and the system of governance and administration of justice has been improved. However, the OHCHR prefers to ignore these and many other positive changes. We call on OHCHR to refrain from the practice of politicizing the situation in certain countries, including Sri Lanka, and focus on providing them technical assistance in the human rights sphere. China appreciates Sri Lanka's efforts to promote and protect human rights, including reconciliation and reconstruction, combating terrorism, safeguarding the rights of vulnerable groups, promoting economic recovery and improving people's standards. We firmly support Sri Lanka in safeguarding national sovereignty, independence, social stability and promoting economic development. As pointed out by other colleagues, HRC Resolution 51/1 does not follow the principles of fairness and objectivity, and no selectivity does not again. We believe that UNHRC should respect sovereignty and political independence of all countries and the efforts made by them to promote and protect human rights and play its role for constructive dialogue and cooperation.
Sri Lankan Minister of Justice Vijayadasa Rajapaksa said that the education system in the country must go through a total revamp and reform before proceeding to reforming the higher education system of the country. The minister said that the division of schools brought in by the 13th Amendment to the Constitution has created issues in the education system. He further added that successive governments have failed in creating equal opportunities to receive an education in Sri Lanka.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුව විසින් විශේෂ තේරීම්කාරක සභාවක් පත් කරනු ලැබුවා. එහි පරමාර්ථය වුණේ ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ උසස් අධ්‍යාපන අවස්ථා පුළුල් කිරීම සඳහා සුදුසු නිර්දේශ ඉදිරිපත් කිරීම. එහි සභාපතිවරයා විදිහට මමත් තවත් මන්ත්‍රීවරු 11 දෙනෙකුත් මාස 6කට වැඩි කාලයක් මේ රටේ අධ්‍යයන ශාස්ත්‍රයේ විශිෂ්ටයන් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලවල උපකුලපතිවරුන් මහාචාර්යවරුන් ආචාර්යවරුන් ඒ වගේම රාජ්‍ය සහ රාජ්‍ය නොවන අධ්‍යාපන ආයතනවල විශේෂඥ වරුන් ඒ වගේම විදේශීය අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රම පිළිබඳව හදාරපු උදවිය කැඳවලා අපි ඒගොල්ලන්ගෙන් හුඟක් අදහස් ලබා ගත්තා. මුල පටන්ම ගැඹුරින් අධ්‍යයනය කරපුවම අපි තේරුම් ගත්තා මුලින් ඉඳලම කොහොමද අපේ අධ්‍යාපන රටාව ක්‍රමය වෙනස් වෙන්න ඕන කියලා. ආණ්ඩු ක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ 27 වෙනි ව්‍යවස්ථාවෙන් කියන්නේ අධ්‍යාපනයේ සෑම අවස්ථාවකම සියලුම පුරවැසියන්ට සම අවස්ථාව ලබා දෙන්න කියලා. ඒක තමයි ආණ්ඩුවේ මූලික වගකීම විදිහට ආණ්ඩු ක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවට ඇතුල් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒතකොට ඒ අනුව අද ඒ සම අවස්ථාව දෙන්න අපේ රාජ්‍ය අසමත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. එක පැත්තකින් ආණ්ඩු ක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවට 13 වෙනි සංශෝධනය ඇතුළත් කරාට පස්සේ පාසල් වර්ගීකරණය කරනවා ජාතික පාසල් සහ පළාත් සභා පාසල් කියලා. ඒතකොට ජාතික පාසල් වලට වැඩි වශයෙන් මුදල් වියදම් කරන්න පහසුකම් ලබා දෙන්න. එතකොට අනෙකුත් පළාත් සභා පාසල් වලට අඩු පහසුකම් අඩු වියදම් දරමින් එතන අපි මේ වර්ගීකරණයක් කරනවා. ඊට අමතර ලෙස මේ වර්ගීකරණය තුළ තවත් ජනප්‍රිය පාසල් ඇති වෙනවා. ඒ ජනප්‍රිය පාසල් ඇතිවීම නිසාම සමාජයේ විශාල ප්‍රශ්න රාශියක් දැන් හටගෙන තිබෙනවා. ඉතින් මේ විෂමතාවය නිවැරදි කිරීම අධ්‍යාපනයේ ප්‍රබල වෙනසක් පාසල් පද්ධතියේ සිදු කළ යුතුව තිබෙනවා.
4 persons have been reportedly injured following a dispute that arose between them in the Talawakale area. They are currently receiving treatment at the Nuwara Hospital. Following a heated argument between two parties in Piliyandala, however, a lorry was set on fire as retaliation. Police are on the hunt for the suspect. Coincidentally, both incidents were captured on active CCTV cameras in their respective vicinities. With that, here's a look at more news in brief from around the country. A dispute among the drivers of a nearby three-wheel station and employees from a restaurant in the Talawakale area has been recorded by CCTV cameras in the vicinity. The Talawakale police stated that owing to the clash between both parties, 4 people had been seriously injured and are currently receiving treatment at the Nuwara Hospital. CCTV cameras also recorded an incident where a lorry parked inside a restaurant in the Piliyandala Bokundara area was set on fire by an individual. The suspect reportedly set the vehicle on fire as a result of an argument between the suspect and another party. However, police investigations are currently underway to apprehend the suspect who has fled the area. A 50-year-old was killed following a wild elephant attack in the Bandaragama area. This tragedy befell the deceased last afternoon.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන් කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්.
Welcome back. Sri Lankan shares closed lower today, dragged down by a fall in consumer staples and industrial stocks. The Colombo Stock Exchange All-Share Price Index closed down 0.34% at 11,348.25 points, while the S&P SL20 dropped 0.43% to close at 3,208.13 points. Trading volume on the index fell to 38.2 million shares from 40.6 million shares in the previous session. The equity market's turnover fell to 919.8 million rupees from 1.15 billion rupees in the previous session. The capital goods sector was the top contributor to market turnover today, while the diversified financial sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net buyers, purchasing stocks worth 56.9 million rupees, while domestic investors were net sellers, offloading shares worth 907.5 million rupees. With that, let's take a look at how the performance of the rupee today was against other major currencies. That's all the news I have for you this evening. Do join us again tomorrow at the same time for more up-to-date news on AdaDerana's premier English news channel, AdaDerana First at 9. For now, this is Jonathan Benedict wishing you a blessed Wednesday ahead. Have a good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.